I'll bet your feed is flooded right now with sleek social media clips telling you exactly what you need to buy to fix your summer garden. Every glossy nursery flyer makes it look so effortless, as if a beautiful yard is just one store transaction away. But then you step out into that heavy, baking mid-June sun, and a sudden wave of reality hits you hard. The soil feels like concrete. The expensive seedlings you just put in are flagging. And you're already wiping sweat from your eyes before 9 in the morning. Chasing those picture-perfect suburban yards usually ends in just two things: a drained wallet and a massive pile of frustration. The biggest issue with most viral gardening guides is that they love to give you a rigid checklist, but they completely ignore your actual climate zone. You follow their neat steps to a T, throw your money at seeds, and then watch the pests move in or the roots rot because the timing was all wrong for your geographic location. I stopped buying into that stressful, expensive trial and error years ago, and you shouldn't have to deal with it either. A real, grounding backyard space shouldn't feel like a demanding second job, and it definitely shouldn't require you to spend your weekends on your knees, pulling stubborn weeds out of the dirt. Today, we're slowing down and looking at 11 specific crops that are genuinely smart to plant right now, even if you feel like you've missed the spring planting window. These are the rare, cooperative varieties that handle the intense summer sun, protect your budget, suppress their own weeds, and actually know how to thrive in your specific zone. No corporate sponsors, no miracle chemical products, and absolutely no overpromised marketing fluff. Just honest, real-life observation, heavy personal experience, and solid, practical plant science that respects your time and your peace of mind. Let's start our journey down south, where the summer heat is already pushing past 90 degrees in places like the sun-baked plains of Dallas, Texas, or the humid expanses of Central Florida. If you live in zones 8 through 10, your standard slicing tomatoes are probably hitting a massive biological wall right about now. Traditional tomatoes have a major flaw. They will stop producing and drop their blossoms the exact second the temperature crosses 85 degrees. That is when you want to stop fighting nature, pivot away from them, and plant the tomatillo, which is often called the Mexican husk tomato. This remarkable plant doesn't just tolerate the heavy, suffocating heat of a deep southern summer, it actually waits for that exact warmth to start exploding with life. It features a brilliant, built-in natural defense system because of a sticky, bitter residue it secretes right under its papery husk that destructive bugs absolutely despise. Just remember, they have a bright, tart flavor, making them absolutely perfect for homemade salsa verde rather than fresh salads. Since we're already sitting in the first weeks of June, please don't bother starting these from seed because you'll lose too much vital daylight. Go down to a small, independent local nursery, find a healthy starter plant to buy yourself some time, stake it early, and watch it easily outpace every regular tomato in your neighborhood. Next is a perfect solution for anyone who craves fresh summer fruit, but feels limited by a tight urban backyard layout. Standard watermelons are notorious space hogs, taking over 100 days of intense care and sprawling across 20 feet of precious ground. Instead, look for the traditional Korean melon, which many heirloom growers know as chamo or oriental melon. It's a brilliant choice for late starts because it's ready to harvest in about 70 days, and the actual fruit only grows to the size of a small, manageable cantaloupe. The flavor is something truly special. It tastes like a crisp cross between a clean, refreshing cucumber and a deeply sweet, fragrant honeydew melon. The smart, low-effort trick here is vertical trellising on a simple livestock cattle panel, leaned against a fence or an old brick wall. Training the vines upward keeps the heavy melons entirely off the damp dirt where ground rot and insects like to feast, while saving your lower back from constant bending. Then we have okra, which is a total, unyielding staple for any low-water, high-heat garden where other vegetables go to die. Okra simply does not care if your soil isn't perfect, and it will keep pushing pods through the worst dry spells without asking for expensive fertilizers. If you want to double your yield while keeping things cheap, use this simple pruning trick. Every single time you clip a mature okra pod for your kitchen, snap off the large, wide fan leaf located directly underneath that harvested pod. This forces the plant to stop wasting its internal energy feeding old, redundant foliage that has already done its job. Instead, it drives all the nutrients straight up the main stalk to form a brand new flush of blossoms and crisp pods. Now, I know a lot of people actively avoid growing okra because they don't like the internal texture, or what people often call the slime. The real-life kitchen fix for this is incredibly easy, though the commercial cooking shows never seem to talk about it. First, make sure you wash the pods and then dry them completely with a clean towel before your knife ever touches the skin. When you're ready to cook, toss your slices into a scorching hot pan with something naturally acidic, like a few chopped tomatoes or a heavy squeeze of lemon juice. The natural acid interacts with the plant's compounds and neutralizes that slippery texture, leaving it beautifully crisp. Moving to our fourth option, let's talk about a major, universal heartbreak in the summer garden, the dreaded squash vine borer. There's nothing more demoralizing than watching a massive, beautiful, green zucchini vine collapse overnight because a worm ate it from the inside out. If you want to skip that headache entirely and save your hard-earned budget from expensive chemical sprays, plant the Waltham butternut squash instead. Unlike the hollow, soft stems of standard green zucchinis, this specific heirloom winter variety possesses a dense, completely solid stem. The borer moths physically struggle to slice into it to lay their eggs, giving your garden a natural, biological defense system for $0. Plus, once you harvest these beautiful tan squashes in late September, they will sit on your pantry shelf for months on end. You don't need to freeze them. You don't need to can them. And you don't need to waste refrigerator space to enjoy that rich flavor in the dead of winter. Now let's pivot our focus to those of you living in northern regions, like zones 5 through 7, in places like Michigan or upstate New York, where time is a bit tighter. If you absolutely hate the idea of spending your precious weekend hours weeding on your knees, you need to try a baby greens mix. Instead of spacing out traditional head lettuce and leaving wide open gaps of bare soil for weed seeds to claim, we're going to be much smarter. Grab a simple 15-gallon fabric grow bag, fill it with good organic compost, and broadcast your seeds heavily across the entire surface. Within days, they will erupt into a dense, thick, interlocking green carpet that functions as an organic, living mulch. This tight canopy blocks out all ambient sunlight from reaching the dirt, ensuring weed seeds underneath never even get a chance to sprout. When you want a fresh salad, just take a pair of sharp kitchen shears and give the top layer a clean, level haircut. Leave the roots entirely alone, water it lightly, and the entire bag will regrow for another harvest in just a couple of weeks. It's the ultimate lazy solution for a continuous summer harvest without a single weed-pulling tool ever touching your soil. If you want that rich, brown sugar flavor of a classic winter squash, but you only have a single small raised bed, look at the honeyboat delicata. Giant standard pumpkins will easily swallow up an entire backyard grid and suffocate every single neighbor plant you have. But the delicata squash produces a much more cooperative, slender vine that trains beautifully over a cheap overhead wire garden arch. The beautiful striped fruits will hang down neatly through the wire mesh grid, completely out of reach of ground pests and damp dirt. It makes the garden look incredibly personal and artistic, and it is profoundly satisfying to just walk under the arch and clip them at eye level for a highly reliable, steady supply of summer greens that won't quit on you. My seventh pick is the dragon tongue pole bean. A lot of beginners make the mistake of planting bush beans because the seed packets look attractive at the big box store, but bush beans give you one massive sudden explosion of food all at once. And then the entire plant dies off after about 2 weeks. Pole beans operate differently. They keep climbing, keep branching, and keep producing sweet, tender pods continuously until the first hard autumn freeze. Save your money at the retail nursery counter and plant these directly from seed right into your open garden beds. Legumes absolutely despise having their sensitive root systems disturbed by plastic transplant pots, so direct sowing gives you a stronger plant anyway. Within 5 days, they'll pop out of the dirt, find your trellis, and start doing all the hard work of growing without your intervention. Now let's take a look at those tricky, annoying spots in your yard that don't seem to get full sun, like the deep shadows cast by a fence. Instead of leaving those valuable spaces empty, or filling them with useless ornamental wood chips, fill them with ginger and turmeric. These are true tropical forest floor species that will literally get sunburned and die if you put them out in the open heat. You don't need to buy expensive tropical starters online. Just buy organic rhizomes straight from the local grocery store produce section. Let them sit on your kitchen counter until you see tiny green eyes starting to pop up. Then tuck them an inch deep into a shaded grow bag. The absolute golden rule to keeping them alive during the first month is to resist the urge to constantly water them. Until those tubers develop true green leaves above the soil, they physically cannot process heavy amounts of moisture. Leaving them sitting in cold, wet, waterlogged mud will rot your roots before the plant ever gets a chance to photosynthesize. Once September arrives and you notice the tops naturally turning yellow, cut off the water entirely to let the underground aromatic oils concentrate. Right alongside your ginger bags, you can introduce a genuine, high-value garden rarity that will make your space feel incredibly personal. True cardamom. This is a perennial cousin of the ginger family that shares the exact same love for filtered shade, high humidity, and steady, moderate moisture. Plant just one healthy starter per large container, let it slowly expand its lush green fronds, and you'll have a striking focal point. It smells incredible every time you brush past it, requires almost zero daily maintenance, and saves you a fortune at the spice shop later on. Now, we can't talk about a truly smart, low-effort garden without talking about our visual, biological allies, starting with the humble flower called borage. This is one of those beautiful, bright blue-flowered herbs that pays for its own square footage 10 times over in a single season. In the world of permaculture and real plant science, borage acts as what we call a classic, highly effective trap crop. Destructive pests like the cucumber beetle and the tomato hornworm find the chemical compounds in borage far more appealing than your vegetables. By simply planting a small perimeter border of borage around your beds, the destructive insects will congregate entirely on the blue flowers. They will leave your main food crops, like your prized cucumbers and melons, completely untouched and free to grow without damage. Best of all, borage drops an abundance of its own heavy seed at the end of the year right into the topsoil. That means you buy a single packet of seeds once in your entire life, and you get a free biological security system every summer after. Finally, make sure you scatter some Mazurkia zinnias right into the open sunny gaps near your vegetable patch. These flowers feature a gorgeous, highly distinct two-tone pink and white pattern that gives a small space an immediate sense of personal style. But their actual job in our low-effort ecosystem is purely ecological. They act as a massive neon sign for local pollinators and predatory wasps. Those tiny predatory wasps are completely harmless to humans, but they spend their entire day hunting down and eating aphids and caterpillars for you. Zinnias operate on a classic cut-and-comb-again biological cycle, which means the plant is programmed to respond to clipping. The more blooms you cut to put in a glass vase on your kitchen table, the faster the plant creates new side branches and new buds. At the very end of the autumn season, let a few large blooms dry out completely right on the stem until they turn brown and crispy. Shake those dried heads into a simple glass mason jar. Store them in a dark closet, and you are completely set for next spring for free. You see, building a truly beautiful, high-yielding backyard space doesn't require you to spend a fortune on plastic gadgets or toxic sprays. It doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your entire weekend bending over a hot bed, pulling out endless rows of aggressive weeds. It's simply about stepping back, understanding how these different plants interact with each other, and letting nature do the heavy lifting for you. It's about discovering that the most sustainable gardens are built on observation rather than breaking labor. Every time you choose a plant that naturally matches your climate, you're trading unnecessary stress for genuine growth. This mindful shift turns your backyard from a source of constant choreless anxiety into a space of true, peaceful connection. So, put away the expensive tech gadgets, step into the shade, and give yourself permission to grow at nature's pace this summer. You see, building a truly beautiful, high-yielding backyard space doesn't require you to spend a fortune on plastic gadgets or toxic sprays. It doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your entire weekend bending over a hot bed pulling out endless rows of aggressive weeds. It's simply about stepping back, understanding how these different plants interact with each other, and letting nature do the heavy lifting for you.